Hey everyone, welcome to another episode of the Born Podcast, brought to you from our studio here in central Pennsylvania. I'm your host, Nathan Bowden, and on this show, we get to highlight the story of entrepreneurship and business ownership by interviewing some of the best and brightest, business owners and leaders from here in our backyard in central Pennsylvania. We like to say we peel back the onion of what it really takes to start, grow, and run successful organizations while creating an immense impact along the way. You can find a full replay of these broadcasts on our website at thebornpodcast.com. Also, find us on any social media channel or your favorite podcast app. Search for The Born Podcast. Hit that like and subscribe button so you can stay up to date on all the episodes and the interviews that we get to do. Today, I'm really excited because this is actually the first time I've got a trio in the studio. We've got Brian and the mics, as I'm going to say it right now, Brian and the mics. We got the gentleman from Appalachia Technologies. We're going to learn all about their business, about their niche, how they got this started. But for now, gentlemen, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Happy to be here. So we've got Brian Stone, Mike Williams, Mike Romano, for all of you at home. Give us a quick introduction to each of you. Brian, tell us a little bit about yourself. We'll go to Mike, and then we'll go to the other Mike.
Sure. Cool. So Brian Stone, born and raised here in South Central Pennsylvania. Wife, 2 daughters, granddaughter, which is awesome.
Right.
Business is a little over 20 years old. So been kicking around this area for quite some time. Do I mention anything about this in just connections?
I don't know. You go for it if you want to.
Yeah. So Nathan, we've known each other for several years now. We were in Vistage together, been here at the office for some meetings, and that was a great growth for me personally and professionally. And we're really thankful to have these guys over here. And I won't steal any thunder, like Mike Williams, to take over.
Sure. Mike Williams, president of Appalachia Technologies. Been with Appalachia 12 years now. Been in IT, this industry, for the last 39 years. Happy to be here and get to know you and get the people to understand who Appalachia Technologies is.
Awesome.
Mike Romano. I'm the other owner, the other part of Appalachia. We did get started going on 21 years ago, and I knew Brian 2 years prior to that. We worked together at Knowledge Planet, and I was one of his network engineers. He was running a team across the application hosting space around learning management, and he was looking for someone to possibly move on from the team. There was some headcount reduction going on. I raised my hand. I said, I'm going to go jump into the contracting space with the DoD, and allowed my peer at the time to stay on for a while longer. And we stayed in touch, and I'm glad we did, because that's why we're here.
Yeah.
We want to tell the story.
Yeah.
So,
well, let's jump right in. Let's tell the story. Maybe start with the company as it is now. What do you get? What does Appalachia do and services you provide? But then we'll go back to some of the origination and the history of the organization. So I'll let whoever you want to take it.
Sure. I'll jump in to start. So we're in our 20th year, which is fantastic.
Yeah.
We are a IT professional services, cybersecurity services provider. Really focus and hone all of our solutions on securing and protecting the client environment. I mean, at the end of the day, that's our charter. We're technologists at heart, and we have clear lanes, what we want to do. It's really popular these days to build a bunch of services on, because there could be a market for it. We've chosen to kind of focus, stay of technology direction and secure client environments. I mean, at the end of the day, that's our charter and that's our passion.
Okay. Awesome. All right. Let's go back then 20 years ago to the formation. Was this a business that was purchased, or was it a complete startup? Who had the idea to start it up? Like, how does this kind of thing get off the ground and running?
I'll start if you don't mind.
Yeah.
So it was in 2000. Mike and I worked together, Romano, and that was about 2 years. And it was a startup, venture capital funded, and things started wobbling around. And the company was purchased. Headquarters was moving to Boston, and we're like, we're going to stay here. We want to continue doing what we do in this local presence or local market. And to Mike's earlier point, he said, we had some headcount reduction going on, and I was looking across the team, and he's like, "Let me go. I'm going to go start this other thing, and then let's talk." And like 2 years later, after that, he planted a seed earlier than that. Then 2 years later, he came back and goes, I think it's time. What do you think?
Yeah.
And I said, well, this isn't looking like it's going where we want it to go. We have no control over our destiny. We have no desire to move to Boston. We're here. Our families are here. We both, got married and had kids and, of course, now a grandchild and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. But Mike was the one that got us to do that.
Okay.
He's a little bit, yeah. He's the one that said, let's go. You coming along? And I said, hell yeah, I'll go with it. Yeah. So we hung the shingle and started doing this actually part-time. And it was quite a couple of years until we were able to recruit and hire our first FTE, full-time equivalent. And that was scary, right? We didn't buy it. We just hung a shingle, came up with our name. Yeah. We have some stuff on our website that says where the name came from and all that. But we did that for a while. We agreed that all the relationships that we built over the years of being part of this IT and this hosting business, that's what they called it before the cloud. Mm-hmm. But we realized that we could probably make something of it. It's just going to take a little while.
Sure.
So we started recruiting people, and, maybe 10, 15 years later, we were upwards of 50 people, and, we're down a little bit lower now. We're kind of right sizing, but Mike and I have been doing this for a long time, and Mike Williams was actually at that company as well.
Okay.
And we had quite a few lunches over quite a couple years and said, when we're ready, we want you. We just aren't ready yet, from a growth, and we were able to put some stuff in place. So we were finally able to do that. And that was a really, really good decision, because Mike came in and started leading teams right away. And then, a couple of years later, he's running the show. And that's been really helpful to us, because he brings a piece, a little strength on the culture side that, that we don't have quite that strength. Sure. Yeah. So he's helped develop us, and we've all learned along the way. So that's been it's been a great trio. So I'll pause and let.
Yeah. And I think back 20 years ago, we were in our early to mid 30s, and we had families, we had mortgages, sure. we had car loans, and, we were investing in this, but, we still had to carry, that overhead. And, so we held on to the contracts and the full-time positions that we had, and we ran Appalachia part-time. And I'm glad, it's unfortunate that things kind of came apart the way they did with Knowledge Planet and Amzenga. But, we sourced a lot of great folks, that eventually, would end up, across the table, and answering our questions and giving us ideas about the next iteration of our business, and I think the best people that end up as part of your organization, you court them for a while. Yeah. I think being impulsive and making those hasty decisions, rushing people into the organization because you're growing, that's great, but it's difficult. And often you're not getting it right, so it's helpful, that, we took the amount of years that we did with Mike, and even our first salesperson, we didn't hire them until 2011, but we were talking to them all the way back in 2008. Yeah. And so, it's been a good run so far, but I see a lot on the horizon that we have plans, to put in place, that I think, with the team that we have assembled now, the management team that we're building under Mike, there's a lot of new practices, that are going to be, launched this fall. So we're kind of excited about, bringing that to the market, and all the existing stuff we've been doing for a while, that stuff is flourishing. And, so yeah, it's been good.
So starting, that would have been, if my math serves me correct, you're in the early 2000s when you launched this, and coming off the heels of the tech bubble, which, was different probably than what you guys were experiencing, because what that was were these massive, you read about pets.com and, AOL and, the internet fad that, obviously the internet's real, but what ballooned from it was a bit of a challenge. But did you guys have any hurdles related to that caused any issues in your introductory phase that you were able to work through, or given the services that you were offering, was that kind of completely separate from that?
Well, I think eventually we were impacted. It caught up to us. It caught up to the business that, I worked for Brian at, at Knowledge Planet. But they had a lot of VC, money behind us at the time. So the market effects were not directly impacting us at that time. We had a lot of runway to work with. Yeah. We were building out data centers, and we were building the team. and we were delivering, and we had a lot. I mean, Brian's got a list of Fortune 50 clients that we were working with, you know, and often if he wasn't up in New York City, he was, you know, in Eastern Asia, and we were over in Europe building out, you know, a presence with, I think it was Exodus at the time. You know, it was exciting, but it was difficult because you look to the left and right. It's like, what's going on in the rest of the market? But we had money, we had capital, and we were able to expand. And man, we had a killer team. Even when I left in 2002, that was an amazing team. If I could have picked them up at that time, had the vision that we were starting Appalachia and gotten started right then, we would have sprinted, you know, but, you know, it worked out the way that it did.
Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah.
All right. Let's now fast forward to bringing Mike on board because, and, you know, I know a little of some of the story. I'm privileged to have been in, Brian, you mentioned Vistage. So I know a little bit of the story, stuff that was going on. And Mike, you're coming into the group and your rise up through the organization. So talk us through, like, why did you decide to join Appalachia? And, well, let's just start with that.
Yeah, it's a great question. I worked for a smaller company previously. I worked for a really large company, Electronic Data Systems. That's where I started my career 39 years ago. And it felt I'm more geared towards a smaller company. I'll say it that way. I like the ability to have a seat at the table, have a voice, you know, be able to affect the business in a way that I wanted to affect the business. Brian and I, he was working on the sales team and I was working on the customer experience team. So he and I interacted all the time in the trenches, solving real world problems. So I already knew who I was getting here. I didn't know Mike really at all. When I was at Knowledge Planet, Mike and I, our paths didn't really cross.
Okay.
So once I met Mike and we started talking about what this thing could be, it got really exciting for me. At that point in my life, I was still pretty technical. I was technical for a large part of my life, but new leadership was my passion and my path, and I had the opportunity to do that here. And I also love the notion of being able to start in a small company and grow that thing. So it was much about working with good guys, local. I'm Central PA, born and raised, and being able to make a difference, quite frankly, in a more impactful way than I was when I was before. So that was really the decision.
There's a lot of culture related verbiage and undertones in what you're saying there. And that's going to lead, I think, to a couple discussion points. I'd say culture at large, but then I want to touch on you getting to this role of president and the implications that is for you guys, because there's a challenge for owners to bring people up into that sort of a role and relinquish, if you will, release some of that. But let's start at the bigger picture and talk about the culture of the organization. Because I would imagine that part of the smaller company is culture related in general, where you move away from big corporate, where you said you don't have a seat at the table. Pace is maybe a little bit different. Maybe you feel like you can have more of a direct impact on people's lives because it's a smaller group. But what is it about your culture that you really have been emphasizing and trying to build, and that makes you feel like you're different?
For me, the fact that look, the most important thing when you're trying to establish a culture, and it takes a while to get there, is leadership has to be on board. We have to be aligned, right? We can't, it's not do as they say, not as I do. It's I want to lead by example, quite honestly. So we had a really strong foundation of being, I'm going to say it, solid humans that just wanted to do the right thing for people and our clients. And it kind of started there. So look, there's not a lot of difference between now and 100 years ago. What drives people? They want to feel valued. They want to contribute. They want to be part of something bigger than themselves. So really, we were like, all right, here we go. We just need our culture and our core values to play across IT, managed services, cybersecurity, right? Because there's some nuance there that you might not have in another company, or you might have. And that was really kind of the embryonic stages of our culture. What's important to us? Communication, obviously, customer experience, our team members. The first and foremost, like it always starts there for us. We realize that the biggest asset we have are our people. Like when our people are happy, the employee experience is systemic to the customer experience. So that was our primary focus. Let's get this thing right. and we almost can't fail, right?
Yeah.
There are some things you can't control, COVID, those types of things, right? But it just kind of, we just were who we were and talked like this. It doesn't need to be, it needs to be real world and human. I'll say again, I mean, we talk about human all the time, humanizing things, our interaction to each other. The other thing that I think was really important to us was in our industry, service is the differentiator, right? And everybody wants to say they provide great customer service.
Right.
And for us, it's more than just serving clients. It's serving each other.
Yeah.
Like that's where it starts for us.
Leadership.
Yeah.
We say it.
We're servant leaders. Absolutely. And we want our teammates to know that just because we have a title doesn't really make us any different than them. We're in this thing together and we're more than happy to roll up our sleeves and do anything it takes when needed. And I think we demonstrate that and they see that. So they respect that. It's not that we're sitting in some corner office, door closed. That's not it at all. We're out and about and we're doing anything and everything we can to support our teams.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I was going to add, we learned as much what not to do in our previous lives.
Yeah.
So saying, hey, 100%. Let's build something that we want to be part of.
Yeah.
A thing with a purpose, and what we quickly learned was here, the list of things to not do was longer than the things to do.
100%.
And again, to Mike's point, when we were unsure, we're just like, what would you do?
Yeah.
Like, what would you do as a human?
Yeah.
Like, there is a number and you got to generate revenue and pay bills and do all that. And we're not a nonprofit, we want to earn a fair profit. But at the end of the day, when the tough decisions come, and they will, we've had plenty over the years, we huddle and we're like, what would we want if we were on the other side of this equation?
Yeah.
And we're like, when we run into former employees, whether they're let go on their own or we do it, we want to be able to have a conversation. It's professional, respectful. We know a lot of families. You run into somebody at the grocery store, you don't want to duck down the next aisle because you were an a-hole. You want to be like, look, we treat each other with respect. It just isn't the right fit for everybody. And people need a purpose. Humans need a purpose.
It's a tough enough gig. I mean, our space, IT, cybersecurity, it's tough for lots of different reasons. And to Brian's point, the goal was always create a company that we always wished we could have worked for, but we never really found. And now that the three of us and the rest of the leadership team can control that, we create that. It's really that simple. I mean,
and it's harder than it sounds.
Oh yeah,
that sounds easy. It's like, no, it's not that. It's a lot of tough decisions.
But when you're all on the same page, though, it makes it a lot easier to kind of overcome those hurdles. There's always going to be hurdles.
Yeah. I was just going to say that we have had our metal tested time and again. Right. We're not just talking head saying lead with integrity, be empathetic, extend grace, watch the cost, deliver with excellence, like all those things. But we're executing across the board, and when faced with, those difficult choices, we're always going to lead with our people first. Yeah. The business will take a hit. The business will sacrifice. We know the long play is those people that we cherish and we promote will enlighten our clients, and our clients will keep coming back for more, and the business will win. We're all winning. Yeah. So, yeah.
And to that point, I would argue, and I don't have the data, but I feel pretty confident about it. The tenure of our employees in our company, I think, far exceeds our competitors in the area. I mean, there's a fair number of our employees that work for competitors of ours, right? And so, we take great pride in that. To know that our entire management team has been there for 8+ years is outstanding. These were people that were once engineers or techs in the trenches that understand process, understand culture, and now they're leading it. So it's really worked out well that way.
I was just talking with Hannah earlier today about all that you were talking about, living out your values, servant leadership. That's great to have them people inside your either organization or people who have already come in where you can actually walk the walk instead of just talking the talk. There's a great challenge because everybody, I think you might have said, somebody said, everybody says, we provide great customer service.
Sure.
And blah, blah, blah. How do you differentiate that you actually do what you're saying you do? Mm-hmm. You can't really do that on a billboard or in a messaging or whatnot. You just have to win business.
Employee and client retention is a part of that, right?
Prove that you do it, live it inside and out.
I was going to say a point to that is we're not perfect.
Yeah.
We have screwed up, but we make it right.
Yeah.
We meet with the client and say, this was on us. Like if we can help build, and 9 times out of 10, the relationship is better after that tough thing.
Yeah.
Because we get to look each other in the eye and say, man, we're humans and we did everything we could, but we screwed up. Do we have the opportunity to make it right? And can we make this thing? And those are the relationships that last longer than the other ones that are superficial, just saying it.
Yeah, absolutely. Sorry. No, you're good. You're good. All right, let's talk about Mike coming into the role as president and as owners, how that came to be, what that was like for both sides, because I imagine there's some transition challenges that
some
are
nuance
faced.
to it. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, some stuff.
That might some stuff
on both sides, because you're talking about releasing stuff. You're talking about trying to step into a new role. There's probably you're trying to take the reins on some things while at the same time I'm trying to release the reins on some things, and talk a little bit about that, and then maybe what you learned from that, because this is especially for owners, I think it's a huge issue, not in a personal thing, but it's a huge issue in cultivating the next generation of leaders or other individuals who can come in and actually help your organization thrive by letting go of stuff. But it's a continual challenge. And so you're working through it, as you'll probably, if I know you well, you'll say, we're not perfect at it. We're going to make mistakes, but it sounds like you're in it together and you're working through it. So talk about you first coming in. How did that come to be? And the realization that, maybe Mike needs to step into this role, and then some of the things that you've gone through and you learned from it.
I'll take the first one at this. Back in 2020, right, pandemic hit, we were, I think you were with High Center. No, I was with High Center at the time. Yeah. And listen, there's a lot of guidance there, a lot of great sage advice that comes your way about know when you're being ineffective and you need to bring the next level resource in, to lead your organization. And so we had a lot of heartfelt conversations about that. And, I'm sure those conversations happened within the peer sessions, and we were thinking about what that would look like, an external search, and what were we looking for. And, but, we came to the realization, at the end of 2020 that we had that person, in our midst, and that was Mike. And we put a plan in place for 12 months and got him access to the best leadership training in central Pennsylvania. Kent would be appreciative of that. And it took a year, and he broke through the gates, in January of 22. And has been doing an excellent job ever since.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, I was going to say, if you think it's scary, and this is for those listening and thinking about hanging a shingle, if you think it's scary hanging a shingle, try releasing your baby to another human that you know well, but you're like, wow, I still do have a mortgage payment, and I still got kids in college, and I got all this stuff, and does this other person think like us?
Yeah.
Well, fortunately, they don't.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Think like us all the way. Yep. Because I have learned more from both of these guys, other than the Visage experience with you and some of the other leaders. But, I have grown and learned by watching and releasing, because you don't start a business and successful if you don't think you know more than you know.
Yeah.
Right. You kind of think you got a lot figured out. And when you don't, you just figure it out. Well, there's been times where I'm like, man, I know what I do, but talk to me.
Yeah.
And there's some other voices over here humanizing, being like, well, hey, if you were on the other side of this equation, just empathizing, So that has been huge from a growth standpoint for all of us in our team. I'm pretty sure our team would follow him off a cliff. And maybe there was a time they would have followed us too. Yeah. But there is a point at which if you start a business, you're probably not the right one to grow it to a certain point, right? It's crossing the chasm. Mm-hmm. You get to a certain point and you're like out of the good ideas because those good ideas started it, but they don't know how to get to the next level. Sure. And I think we realized that and said, man, I wish I knew. But I just don't know if I know anymore. So enter Mike.
Yeah. Yeah, we saw the different teams that he was leading early on and started turning around, a lot of the KPIs and just things would start to improve. And, and then he would jump into some other swim lanes and help his peers. And we knew then, those were markers, that, he is the one, and we're thankful to have him on the team.
And we don't always agree. That's the part. And you know what? Yeah, sometimes we'd like to just, and then you go, well, he's right.
Yeah. Because he's living it. He is right.
That's right. All right. Well, now I want to hear from you, but before I do, I want to tell these guys to earmuffs because I want you to just tell us the truth about everything.
Of course. So there's a certain set of feelings, I'm sure, giving a baby to somebody.
100%.
And then there's a whole other set of feelings taking the baby from somebody, right?
Yeah.
I've got two guys that are partners, that are friends, that you don't want to let down.
Yeah. Definitely.
You got a whole team of people that are kind of counting on you that you absolutely don't want to let down. So for me, I've never been a president before. So I was in kind of uncharted territory. But the beauty for me is, I know what I'm strong in and I know what I'm not. So I was able to surround myself with a stellar group of other leaders. And I don't ever, without them, I wouldn't be in the spot that I'm in, quite frankly. Yeah. So while I'm the president, I'm getting this much done. The team is helping me get this much done, quite frankly, at the end of the day. So I know having the support and being able to surround myself by strong people was really important. We had already established our core values at the time, and our culture was well on its way, felt great about that. Then it was just a matter for me of understanding aspects of the business that I wasn't necessarily exposed to before, right? And, for me, it's been a privilege and an honor, and honestly, the learning experience in my life to be able to understand that tactical level, right? P&L, AR, all those things that come that I just didn't have the exposure that I in prior lives. So it was a lot at once, and it took a little while to chip away at all that, quite honestly. The first year, it's daunting, right? You're questioning, am I making the right moves? Am I meeting expectations? Am I meeting expectations of the team?
Yeah.
And when you genuinely care about those things, there's a self-imposed pressure. And I absolutely am my harshest critic, quite frankly. So I just took feedback from the team. I took feedback from these guys. I felt I had clear things that made sense to do. And here we are. And it's worked out pretty well. I mean, we're in our fourth year of this, and we've had some ups and downs, of course, like any company is going to. There have been a lot of things. We mentioned COVID before.
Sure.
Year one was COVID and getting through that and all of the fun of remote work. And, there's some things that come out of the HR process with COVID that we didn't have to deal with before. But you do what you have to do. And as long as you're surrounded, I'm a sports guy and I'm a teamwork guy. I really believe in the power of team. And I believe as long as we have the right team surrounding us, there's absolutely nothing we can do. So that was kind of the philosophy going into it. And I've been blessed to have great people to work with.
I have to imagine, I think one of the first things you said, you mentioned it's one thing to release your baby. It's another thing to take that baby. Mm-hmm. I have to imagine that thought process from Mike and that understanding of the responsibility that he's now absorbing and that the acknowledgement of what you are entrusting to him played a part in your willingness to say, okay, this might not be perfect. We're going to have a bumpy road. This is going to be challenging. But if somebody's going to take it and treat it with the care and respect that we have for all these years, it's someone like that.
Yep.
I would imagine that shown through. I mean, even in that first comment, tells me you get it and understand it, and that alone makes you the right type of person for that role.
Right. Well, the beauty is we had 8 years of trying to figure this thing out before this decision was made.
Sure.
So there was a large sample size of, all right, Mike runs a little hot here, maybe a little lax here. So like they knew what they were getting into, and I knew what I was getting into. But to Brian's point earlier, we're all like, we're never going to master this thing.
Yeah.
So a day at a time, we're learning. When we fall down, we pick each other up and we, move on to the next day. Like there's really not a secret sauce to this thing, quite honestly. It's just doing the things that we should be doing anyhow.
I think you said that earlier about the list of things that you shouldn't do versus should is very different. And that list of should is quite short, but it's not easy to do all the time.
But doing the right thing means different things to different people.
Yeah, that's great.
But I can tell you too, one of the biggest benefits or improvements to us was, Mike drove this one too, was signing up for best places to work in PA.
Oh yeah.
Well, that was to get us better, not to pat ourselves on the back. That was to say, get some anonymous feedback from our team on what we're doing right, what we're doing wrong.
Yeah.
Or how we can improve.
Sure.
What do you start, stop, and continue doing? And every year we participated. We're 7 or 8 years in.
8 years, right?
And we get even if it's one thing, we go, man, we misread the team. Like we misread what was going on.
Yeah.
And if this feedback is honest and true and candid, and that's where we can focus on, we have no choice but to get better.
Yeah.
And Mike drives that too. He produces the results, shares it, has a whole company meeting and says, here's where we think we're good and here's where we're not. And we're going to put some OKRs, KPIs in place. And this is what we're going to work on the next couple quarters. We're going to make that better because that you spoke. And that has been really helpful because we think sometimes we know and we're wrong. And we're like, here's what I think's going on over here. And we're like, unless they were silent and somebody else had a voice, we misread it.
Yeah, sure.
I agree. And it's the kiss of death to put people through a survey and not take the data and do something with it, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And to Brian's point, 8 years ago, we really didn't expect to win best places to work. We knew we wanted to get there, but we wanted the data. And when we won, we were like, okay, here we go. And it's been a really valuable tool for us for the last 8 years. It's something we can hang our hat on. I mean, 8 years, it's a nice little recruiting tool. It's a really good thing, And so, best places to work has been huge for us, honestly.
Yeah, it certainly has tightened up things in a big way. And the one thing I want to add, and I know, like, being the president, it is that whole idea that it's lonely at the top. Yeah, it can be. Me and Brian kind of serve as his sounding board. There's times he'll send out a group text or something over Teams says, "Hey guys, we need to chat. Can you get on in 5 minutes?" I have an immediate anxiety spike, but then, man, as soon as I get on with these two, man, I know like this is the team, and we're going to get through to the other side of this, and we always do in a very good way. And Mike doing the great job that he has since 22 has allowed Brian and I to return to some of our kind of core strengths, within the business, so, while he's putting out fires and grooming the next line of management, we're really jumping right back into the stuff we were doing year one through the first year that you showed up, and that's been really nice to have that ability to do that. And listen, he doesn't get that option, right now. Right. And other than he is grooming these guys and they're taking on things that they need to be taking on. And that's been beautiful, because initially you were in the weeds, and there's some things, and it's been tough, much like us at a macro level, letting our baby go. He lets go of things that he built, in some of which, occurred before he became president. And turning that stuff over and not having, the ability to touch that every day and hope that it still generates the outcomes that, we're all hoping for. So, he's he's kind of going through that as well.
It's nice to be able to hand that off to really competent, smart people. At the end of the day, it's easy to delegate when you feel it, when the people you're delegating to, are going to take it and run with it. And quite honestly, make it your own. Like, this is just my stupid idea. Maybe you can put some polish on this thing and make it better. So, it's worked out real well.
All right, let's talk about the current landscape, the IT cybersecurity landscape. And you mentioned earlier about some initiatives and such that you've got coming out. You don't need to do any sort of early reveals, but what are you seeing that you're finding as opportunities for you guys to start capitalizing on, that you're putting initiatives into and time and energy into?
Well, I can hit one. I mean, listen, it's the elephant in the room, that's AI, right? So it's an enabler, right? It should have a huge impact on production, but there are kind of headwinds. What does it mean, for the future, with respect to certain roles? And, so job security is first and foremost, so what happens when, in 2027, this particular cross section of resources within our org are subject to getting, pushed aside with automation, AI, and everything that goes with that. For us, it just means opportunity for them. We're going to push them up and get them into a more strategic, capacity, and find ways that we can then leverage the very thing that's, inching its way into our ranks and help our clients out, help them do the same, and also help them from sharing too much. Because if you're on a generative AI, certainly a free platform, you're putting a lot out there, expecting a lot of good stuff back. That's going to help you, do well, within your career. And the idea that there is way too much being shared, and that we need to have the equivalent of kind of like content filters, making sure that we're not sharing any trade secrets, private health information, personal identity information. That's the idea. And I think that is where we're going to be well positioned to help our clients out later on this year. And even now, there's pockets of it going on all the time. But, I think the industry as a whole, is trying to figure out, because there's not a lot of policy, there's not a lot of legislation coming down, that we can all tap into right now and lean against. And this is how you do it. So so we're using all the inputs that we have, and we're trying to figure out what makes sense for the market, for the clients that we serve today. And we're getting to conferences. We're talking to our peers. We're looking at the tools that are out there. There's a handful of them that have made their way into our tool stack that, will be part of our launch. But, there's a lot of uncertainty, but there's a lot of opportunity, and that's kind of where we're at with that.
I know you guys have done a lot of work in the cybersecurity space and have a niche around that. Is the AI, there's some kind of tangential stuff that's sort of a bolt-on with some of the cybersecurity stuff you're doing?
Oh, no question. Yeah. So, again, that example where you have, client X is, they've got this workforce and they're leveraging, the generative AI platform, and they're putting a lot out there kind of into the ether. And if it's not controlled, if it's not a premium service that you're paying for, and even the premium service ChatGPT-4, there's no guarantees that even that, is that there are eyes on that, and that, there's any filtering or boundaries, really in place. So yes, absolutely. And there are tools out there now. They're pretty exciting that, I think the industry is going to grab a hold of here soon that will do just that. They'll notify you. You get instant alerts. Okay, Sally down in accounting just uploaded this data, and because she was trying to put a report together, and we need to act on that, and do everything we can to quarantine it, and then put some workflows in place and some situational awareness and training to prevent it from happening again.
Sure.
So
okay. I was going to mention just the other week, Ben Franklin Technology Partners had a meeting, I think, at Tech Ventures. There was two Congress folks from PA, and they had some other folks there. We probably should have been at that, but they were saying, how do we make Pennsylvania more on the forefront of AI and not be the 32nd of the 50 states in here? And, we listen to those types of things and say, we need to help that. because others are going to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought of Ben Franklin because actually when Mike was joining, we were dealing with Ben Franklin Technology Partners. We bootstrapped this thing, without loans and without venture capital or PE or any of that. But we did take on some investment from Ben Franklin, which was great, but it helped build out. But it's nice to know that in South Central PA, in our backyard, folks we've been affiliated with are looking to us and to others to say, how is AI going to help us more than it hurts us? Because there's certainly, the bad actors are using it on the other side of the equation, much like they use all the other tools that we use to do bad things instead of good things.
Yeah. And listen, there will be a ton of providers lining up.
Oh, gosh,
and you got to be able to kind of distinguish between those that have something valuable to share and some assistance that they can lean in and help you get to a better place and maybe prevent some of those things I shared earlier. So again, there'll be a lot of snake oil going on, and the idea is to make sure that, we're helping those customers, get access to the right tools, the right services. And so this is not an attempt on our part to be the first out there, and they'll all come. We are in a very genuine way. We are concerned, even within our own house, about how to adopt AI. And so we're putting, even though, again, we don't have a lot of legislation and policies externally to look at, we're making a real straight run at this, so I think that we have, and we're actually getting to some of the conferences that specifically, and these conferences that we've been going to for years, AI wasn't even a mention. And now it's driving all of their participation. So there's all kinds of information out there, but I think, I do believe that we're going to do what we can to harness the tools and the best practices such as they are here in 2025. And they'll be part of our offering that we're going to bring to market this fall.
Can I don't know if you wanted to share, Chris Wecker, our technical assistance center manager. He has implemented a private version of an AI stack that is helping our ticket levels, service levels, client experience.
That's great.
And he literally just reported last week in our management meeting. He said that AI stack, it has done enough to reduce the need to hire a body.
Yeah.
So we're not firing a body, but to not have to hire a body. Mm-hmm. So from an efficiency and a profitability and a client service standpoint, the fact that this stuff, and it's a private version, you're not putting this stuff in the cloud, but we're using it. We're trying to walk the walk and experience it ourselves, but that's huge. So local businesses, even ones across the nation and world, that they will harness this and get some benefits out of that, because that's huge. Saving a body for the cost of a tool, and making people's lives easier and the client experience better. It's like a win-win-win.
The other beauty with that is if we can automate mundane, busy work to free our people up to do other bigger, badder things, that's a win for us all day. Yeah. And for us, the other side of the AI spectrum, it's pretty advanced. We're still figuring out what this thing is. It's just basic cybersecurity blocking and tackling for companies, right? There's a layered approach to this thing. So to be able to get in with a company that knows they should be doing something, but really doesn't know what they should be doing. Mm-hmm. It's wonderful to go in and start to talk to them and paint a picture, help them through a roadmap, budgetary considerations, all these things to get them on that path. Because I'm here to tell you, we talk about it all the time. We love clients to have a culture of security. A lot of them don't. Yeah. And so to get them to start thinking that way, is really important, and something we it's kind of a mission for us, quite honestly, because we want clients that think IT and cyber is relevant to their business, right? It's not just this technology off in the corner; it's driving your business. Sure. You got to look at it that way. It has to have a seat at the table, as big as any seat at the table, quite honestly.
Yeah,
the basically inbound phishing in your inbox, 12 months ago, you could train your team to look for grammatical errors. You could look for, just words being, misordered. Sure. But today with AI, you won't find 1 ounce of grammatical or, misspellings. And as a result, the newest phishing training that's out there is telling you to look for those imperfections now. And maybe that is now a more, a stronger indication that it's a human that's at the keyboard, not necessarily, a bot. So,
interesting. Yeah. Man.
Yep.
Wild how this stuff
absolutely
and flipped its head.
Daily.
The evolution and the rate at which it's evolving, and for us, early on, our tools, because we were so busy being a project shop for a lot of years, and we had our managed services capability, in place early, 2011, 2012, but only a handful of clients, where you were managing aspects of their environment, maybe some managed security. And so our tools, they could kind of grow long in the tooth and not get a lot of attention, and today you cannot take your eye off that ball. The tools have to keep up with the rate by which, the nefarious actors are trying to, they're leveraging all the same stuff that we're hoping to leverage that's built into our platforms. So, we're changing out stacks and components of stacks more often than we'd like. It's uncomfortable. So like when we're negotiating contracts with the tools vendor, we could get that reduced cost if we lock in for 3 years, but no longer. Yeah. We're locking in for 1 year, or we're asking from month to month, and because that you have to be in a position that you can change out, the tools so that we can be better positioned to take care of the clients, based on the current threats.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. I got one final question. Yeah. I don't know about you guys, but this time flies by. And you're sitting here and having fun talking. Yeah, I know. Brian's ready. Let me help you out. We're good friends, so I can touch your straw. I'll let one of you answer. You guys can decide who should answer this. Look out 5 years. If you were to try to paint a picture 5 years from now, what would success look like for Appalachia Technologies? Mike,
I'll put you on the spot.
That's all right.
Brian Straw.
For me, obviously growth, but like mindful growth. One of the things for us that we've always been very cognizant of is we certainly want new clients. Who doesn't? But we don't want to forget the clients that got us to where we are today, right? So for me, in 5 years, to have the clients that we have now that we've had for 10 years, hopefully 15 years, 5 years from now, to have a bunch of new clients, to have cracked this AI piece so that we're actually a leading company in this area, and who knows how far else. And I would also say to provide ample opportunity for growth to our people, our teammates, right? Like to see them succeed, is really I kind of view the three of us right now, we're to the point in our career where we're giving back. Like that's a lot of kind of our incentive, and we self-incentivize ourselves. We want to do that. So to 5 years for us to maybe be able to kind of look from back here, well, this team, very similar to what you guys allowed me to do, right? We're going to hand this thing off to the next set of people, and they have the framework, they have the culture, they have the core values. They're just taking this to places that we weren't able to take it to. To me, that's what I hope 5 years looks like.
Awesome. Can't say it any better, I would assume. All right. Anybody that's been listening to this that's saying, man, I like what these guys have done. They're saying the right things. They're telling a good story. I want to learn more. I want to learn more about their organization, their culture, what they can do. Mike, I'll kick it to you as well. You answered that. What's the best way for people to learn more about your organization?
I would say reach out, send us an email. There's like info@appalachiatech.com. Reach out to me, mike.williams@appalachiatech.com. There's LinkedIn. There's lots of ways to get in touch with us. We're more than happy to have a conversation. We don't have to have a deal to have a conversation. We'd love to have the conversation with you, right? And if there's any way we can help, we're in. Like, it's really that simple. We're extremely approachable. There's a million ways to get in touch with us. Just use one of them.
Awesome. We'll have our contact information, tags and such in all of our show notes and our posts for you guys. But this has been a blast. Mike, Brian, thank you guys for coming on the show. Everyone at home, I hope you enjoyed this. Fantastic discussion. I love the discussion around the leadership transition, and I know what that means. Being in your shoes and being able to pass that on to somebody else, and the responsibility you saw in that and took that with, that was just awesome. So I hope you all enjoyed that at home. And if you are looking for IT services, cybersecurity questions, or you just want to know good people here in Central Pennsylvania, look up Appalachia Technology. Give these guys a call so you can find out more about them. We'll see you on the next episode of the Born Podcast.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.